Good morning, police emergency. How may I assist you?
Good evening and welcome to Ghana Police Watch, Ghana's most watched current affairs program on policing and security, now showing on all the major TV networks. Our deepest gratitude and appreciation, of course, to all the broadcasters for their continued support. And to all our viewers, we hope you are staying at home and observing all the protocols essential, if not critical, to defeating the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. Please wash your hands with soap and running water, don't shake hands, and obey all the rules, including social distancing, not gathering, and so on. I'm sure most of us would agree that the world is now a very different place. It all started when the first human was infected with the coronavirus in December 2019 in the Chinese city of Wuhan. So far, the virus has killed tens of thousands of people and infected over 1.5 million people in over 200 countries. Getting the message to people about the dangers of this virus and how we protect ourselves is therefore crucial. This evening, we are looking at one of the key challenges obstructing the message and even trying to confuse all of us: fake news, especially fake videos that are made and shared on social media platforms to deliberately give false impressions and mislead for mischievous purposes. Making or sharing fake videos and news is actually a crime. We shall be watching some videos and discussing them in the context of what is happening now, Ghana's critical fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. We're privileged to have in the studio this evening lawyer Osei Dixon, Chief Legal Advisor at the National Security Council Secretariat. The streets are empty in Accra, Tema, Kasoa and Kumasi ever since President Akufo-Addo announced a partial lockdown.
If we act now, purposefully, we have a chance of preventing an escalation of our numbers. So, effective 1 a.m. on Monday, 30th March, some 48 hours from now, I have imposed, pursuant to the powers granted the President of the Republic under the Imposition of Restrictions Act, 2020 Act 1012, restrictions on movement of persons in the Greater Accra Metropolitan Area, GAMA, which includes Awutu Senya East Municipality, and the Greater Kumasi Metropolitan Area and contiguous districts for a period of 2 weeks, subject to review.
Everywhere in the world, the rapid spread of the dangerous virus has been accompanied by anxiety, trepidation, and foreboding. This has been so after the announcement by the Chinese authorities of the outbreak of COVID-19 in the city of Wuhan in December 2019.
The United States has become the first country in the world to record more than 2,000 deaths associated with coronavirus in a single day. There have now been over 20,000 deaths there and more than 500,000 confirmed infections.
New York announced its schools will remain shut, at least until September. Good Friday ended up being the most deadly day since the virus reached these shores. More than 2,000 people lost their lives. And America has now surpassed Italy as the country with the most coronavirus deaths.
783 people, 777, 799. These are just incredible numbers, depicting incredible loss and pain.
The same trend in the UK.
When you can't even hug your mother 2 hours after your father passes away, that pain really does affect you. It hurts you so much.
In Ghana, the partial lockdown has been preceded by a range of preventive measures aimed at curbing the spread of the virus, initially from abroad. Travelers arriving at Kotoka International Airport were screened and placed under mandatory quarantine. Internally, efforts have focused on identifying, isolating and treating persons who have tested positive to the virus. A few weeks into the partial lockdown in the selected areas in Ghana, the numbers of confirmed cases continue to increase. The global situation is perilous, considering the rising death toll. In Italy, the hospitals are full, and it breaks one's heart to concede that there are only few other places to keep coffins of loved ones before the burial.
When he became a priest 40 years ago, Father Mario Carminati knew he'd be dealing with death, but not on this scale. Now clusters of coffins arrive every day, with his parishioners laid on the marble floor of St. Joseph's Church in the town of Seriate in northern Italy. Funerals forbidden nationwide, these ministers are also offering blessings at a dignified temporary place of rest before a convoy of military trucks takes Seriate's coronavirus victims on their final journey through the town's silent streets.
The situation is equally bad in other countries, but there is strong determination to stay alive, with nurses and doctors now gallantly leading the fight as frontline soldiers.
Dr. John Chenikwinda is working on the front line at Kingston Hospital. He has recently lost his father and colleagues to the virus.
Ecuador, a country similar to ours in Latin America. COVID-19 has hit it real hard, and it is struggling to cope.
The queue outside Guayaquil's cemetery is a grim warning. Cesar Alvarez lost his mother a week ago to COVID-19. Now he simply wants to bury her.
El dolor humano no tiene factura, no tiene. Así vivimos nosotros los ecuatorianos y nadie nos representa, estamos solos.
Most families like Cesar had to keep their loved ones' bodies at home for several days after authorities became overwhelmed by the number of dead. To protect against the smell in this tropical city, coffins are wrapped in plastic for a final farewell. While authorities claim fewer than 200 deaths from coronavirus in the whole of Ecuador, the city's morgue was overflowing.
Esta es la realidad.
The mayor has now announced 2 emergency cemeteries in Guayaquil to cope with demand.
A timely reminder that the novel coronavirus is real, and it moves when you move. So please stay at home. This is a battle we have to win together, and we surely can. Please stay at home and keep safe. Making or sharing fake videos or news is a crime punishable under Ghanaian law. Section 76 of the Electronic Communications Act 2008, Act 775 says, a person who by means of electronic communications knowingly sends a communication which is false or misleading and likely to prejudice the efficiency of life, safety, service, or to endanger the safety of any person commits an offense. On summary conviction, the offender is liable to a fine of not more than 36,000 cedis or a term of imprisonment of not more than 5 years or both. A person is taken to know that a communication is fake or misleading if that person did not take reasonable steps to find out whether the communication was false, misleading, reckless, or fraudulent. Please be reminded of this law before you post or share fake news on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and all other electronic media platforms, as you may be held personally liable for the message you post, forward, or share. Making or sharing fake videos is a crime punishable under Ghanaian law. This message is brought to you by the Operation COVID Safety Committee, Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, Ghana Health Service, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Security Governance Initiative Secretariat, Ghana Police Service, Ghana Armed Forces, CSDS Africa, and Food and Drugs Authority. Lawyer Sebunsu Dixon is in the studio with us, and he's going to be talking to us about the lockdown, fake news, and the law against fake news. We'll hear about all of that in a bit. Thank you very much for making time to join us.
Sincerely, thank you so much, Israel.
Let's first of all start with what you do. What do you do as the National Security Secretary?
I'm the Chief Legal Advisor, yes. And so what I do is mainly to advise on matters of security nature, matters that arise before the National Security Coordinator, matters that are intrinsically operational in nature and that require not only intelligence advice but also legal advice, are matters that are referred to me.
But then you're having some functions related to COVID-19.
I also double as a Security Governance Initiative Coordinator. And there we look at, for example, cyber, maritime and border issues. And then, of course, cutting issues to do with administration of justice. The Operation COVID Safety Committee was formed immediately after the President announced restrictions in this country, and also following the imposition of restrictions emanating from the Act itself, Act 1012. What we do is to put into effect measures that would police the restrictions and also put into effect a safe and secure environment for Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health to be able to effect the mandate that they have with respect to constraining this disease.
All right. So is the committee the one that advised the lockdown, for instance?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Now that we have you here, can we have you explain to us why this lockdown is so necessary?
So the lockdown is very necessary for a number of reasons. First is that the Ghana Health Service needs a stable environment. It needs to constrain a disease that moves by contact with others. So it needs to have people for a certain duration be actually restricted so that they can do a number of things. One of such things is to do what they call contact tracing. If people are moving helter-skelter the country, it would be a problem because they would be doing both vertical or horizontal cross-infections here and there. And apart from that too, some might be moving outside, for example. Some might be traveling outside the region. And it will be difficult, for example, to have those persons that have already been identified, who are known to be in Accra, still stay in Accra. So it's important to say that in this particular room, everybody stays here. And you're staying here for this period. Within 14 days, we should be able to, within the first 10 days, be able to get a clear handle on those people who we need and be able to stop their movement, be able to put them in mandatory quarantine, or if not mandatory quarantine, some other form of restriction as is necessary.
And would you say that within the period you've been able to succeed in holding the people down?
It seems to me that that is what we have succeeded. We succeeded largely in holding people down in Accra, for example, and also in Kumasi. And whilst doing that, we're looking at Kaswa and places like Obuasi and places like, where else? I mean, so Tema and all those things, yes.
Right. One of the challenges, or there have been a number of challenges regarding the enforcement of the lockdown, because there appears to have been some leeway given or exemptions given to some people, and some appear to be taking advantage of that, and that is presenting a major challenge. How are you dealing with it?
No, Israel is a challenge. I mean, policing a partial lockdown it's actually a difficult thing. It's not easy because you've opened half the door, but you've also kept part of the door or some part of the door, aspect of the door open. And so whilst you are expecting that you put restrictions, those members of the society that want to take advantage of the open door come up with all sorts of excuses why they ought to be out. Some might pretend to be among those members who you have exempted. Some might pretend, for example, to be people who have certain emergent situations that you cannot constrain them with. So they're going to buy food, they need food to eat, they're going to use a washroom, they're going to the offices. Why? Because maybe they're part of essential services or part of the medical staff and stuff like that. And they come up with any and every reason. It is in the nature of human beings to repel anything that constrains their freedom. That is the first point. So the moment you impose freedom, it doesn't mean that you're going to have 100% compliance.
And talking about challenges with enforcement, let's watch this video of a situation which happened here in Accra. We see this woman who has gotten to a checkpoint. She's with a truck, obviously. She probably is a dealer. and she's moving some goods. She gets to the checkpoint, and she's having a difficulty moving across or moving through that checkpoint. Now she explains that she's carrying charcoal. Initially, she said she was carrying food. They checked, realized that she was carrying charcoal, and they said, oh, she actually had a bag of gari on top of it, and so she should be allowed to go.
Right.
Clearly, this is something that I would want to imagine that she should have been allowed to go. She shouldn't have been stopped.
So what I can say is that, I mean, I don't have the fullness of facts about this. But if we were to limit ourselves to the set of facts that, I mean, we see in this video, I would say that, I think I agree with you basically. I mean, we're dealing with cargo here. I do not, by any stretch of imagination, see anywhere within the instruments that we have that says that cargo ought to be restrained. It is the persons that our attentions are focused on at this moment as carriers of the possible disease that we're talking about, but not the cargo itself.
In this situation, the security agencies, those who are enforcing the lockdown, have a lot of discretion. And we have been advised that if you encounter them, don't argue with them. When they say, do this, or they are not going to allow you to go, just comply and turn around and go. But how do you, by doing this or by stopping the woman, they're preventing cargo from moving across. How do you take information from situations like these, analyze them, and then relay it back to the troops on the ground that this woman should have been allowed to go?
Also, I mean, so there's a constant monitoring and review. If you deploy people to govern a situation, I mean, or to carry out an operation, you also deploy a monitoring team to also find out how that operation is being monitored. It's a fact of the operational design that there must be a monitoring. There must be two-way, traffic-way communication. So you get information coming from the field. You must also have directives and instructions going by way of situational reports or C-trips, either coming either way or the other way. The directives must go and the C-trips must come. So they would, for example, report about this. These things will be captured in the C-trips. It might be captured, for example, in the returns of the day. That's so and so, these are incident reports. And it would help to inform us and make us much more nimble on our feet as to what area we should pinpoint. Now, something like this might trigger on a general directives to the enforcement agencies on the ground to apply their discretion in a different manner.
All right.
Now, the point of the matter that one must bear in mind is that these are fluid times. Things are moving very fast. They're in a flux. The president makes a declaration or a statement comes out or an instrument comes out. That instrument needs to be decomposed, understood, explained, and in some cases the practicalities of the situation brought to bear so that we develop some kind of operational communication. So the restrictions actually also come with a bit of inclarity, and as we meet different circumstances, then we have to apply them.
In your conversation with us, you have mentioned that this is a partial lockdown.
Right.
You've also mentioned that you advised the lockdown. Did you advise a partial lockdown or a full lockdown?
Oh, I mean, to the best extent possible, our intention was on the partial lockdown. And I think that's, I mean, the president, for example, in his own communication.
But why partial, though?
Well, because
did you not envisage that you were going to have these challenges if you're having a partial lockdown?
There were other exigencies also on the ground. I mean, you have to look, for example, at the nature of our country. You have to look, for example, at the demographics in the state. You have to look, for example, at income situations, for example. How do people feed? How do people live? So if you understand, for example, that 10 people live in a house, the house has no toilet, and that about maybe 30% of houses at a particular area don't have this, as different from a situation where every house, almost 99% in another jurisdiction has them. They have the means of delivery of food, which is an essential need of man. Then in your configuration, you would introduce very severe limitations on others, but with some circumspection, because it must be obeyed. And if they have to be obeyed, they have to be reasonably managed. People must get used to them. Ghanaians for the past more than 20 to 30 years have not had a situation like this on their hands. Not even the entire world. No country has had this type of thing since 1918. And so one must understand that in countries that are severely challenged like ours, financially, and incomes are, people live by day. Their incomes are by the day.
Yes.
And so if you really have a sudden imposition of it, so some of those kinds of challenges were there. I mean, the question of the period. Should you look at 1 month, as other countries have done, 30 days? Should you look at 3 weeks? Or should you look at 2 weeks, a week, or whatever? So you must have a middle ground about that. You must also look at, how do you call it, the demeanor and the posturing of the commander-in-chief. He's much sensitive to the needs of Ghanaians. He says it absolutely, that this is a difficult decision he must take, but he will take it. But in taking it, he will be mindful about its humanitarian nature and be governed by all those kinds of, imperatives. He must look at all those. Those are imperatives. They are important. They are important consideration.
Let's narrow down on some of the challenges you have encountered. Essentially, it's more about citizens wanting to beat this lockdown.
Yeah, so it's about compliance, mainly. It's about compliance. I mean, and for the most part, I think there's been a fairly appreciably good level of compliance. There are fringe issues that are there. I mean, those ones are there. And then there are those obvious challenges that are implicit in a partial lockdown, like I've said earlier on.
So they encountered, such as encountering security forces who are determined to ensure that you're not going to beat this lockdown.
Of course. I mean, so in those cases, I mean, they will stand their ground. You understand? I mean, if you don't have any reasonable reason to be there, and they won't allow you. And those kinds of situations can lead to a few letter stands off. Yeah.
What are the marching orders given to these security agencies if you encounter somebody who's trying to beat the lockdown?
And so first they have to engage, they have to explain, they have to use and encourage compliance with it. And short of that, they have to enforce the lockdown.
Right. You talk about encouragement, and indeed there's this video of a military officer which has gone viral, where he tries to explain.
Exactly.
Maybe let's just watch that video and then would come to it. So here's a video of a military officer who apparently is engaging some passengers in a trotro and or a minibus and trying to explain to them why it's important for them to stay at home and why this lockdown is so necessary.
I hope you understand what I'm saying. Make it very easy for everybody. Look, we all have our families. We would have been happy staying with our families back home, but we are out here working for God and country, and then for you. So please stay home.
I don't my heart really for, I mean, what those excellent
for
visuals.
You, this is an example of encouraging the people.
This is encouraging the people. So he engaged them. You could see that he was inspiring them to understand the predicament that we face. I mean, if you look at the number of persons in the vehicle, it's an issue, you know.
But it's not always been this case. There are instances where the police or the security agencies may intend to exact some force, which we have seen in some videos that have gone viral.
Well, I mean, there are two types of videos that perhaps, or visuals that we're seeing. So there are those narratives which are completely, how do you call it, made up. We have a situation in the country, and so anybody who makes up a kind of video like that is generally going to drive attention or some traffic towards his video, and we're seeing that a lot. Circumstances that are different. I mean, there might be a shot of videos of security forces who have gone on an exercise. They've gone on a cleanup. They've gone on a route march, for example, and then they're relaxing somewhere, and then somebody runs a video that, hey, we're doing this activity precisely because of you, and that shows the energy and the vim with which we are coming. I mean, this obviously is a shock and awe kind of thing for the ordinary Ghanaian, and so I mean, those type of videos we have seen. We have seen videos of people being whipped, beaten, assaulted, and all those things. Videos like this have popped up. A number of them, in fact, almost I would say about 90% of them have come from different contexts. They don't even belong to Ghana. Some somewhere else, other countries. and others run commentaries over them. In some of the videos that we have seen, where you have even had people comment, you have seen some of the language and some partial analysis of it, you know, that the videos are questionable in, you know, in origin. So there's a hunger to see what is actually happening on the streets. We are even planning a situation where we might take guys like you to go along with them and see what is happening, so that people can see, I mean, live videos, for example, being broadcasted. But other than that, I can say that the fake videos have a moment, they have a currency now. But let me also use the opportunity to forewarn those people who are doing these kinds of things. That is criminal. It's seriously criminal. It's not something
criminal to
the extent that the offensive against the Electronic Communications Act, Section 76, is very explicit about this. That if you, the maker of fake videos, or somebody who makes fake visuals, intended to deceive the public, to create misleading content, and to, you know, is committing an offense. And from all that we are seeing perpetrators of this type of offense. Every situation creates its own crime. Every situation evokes a new type of offense. Yes.
We'll be speaking a lot more about the law.
All right.
As far as fake news is concerned.
Okay.
But still talking about fake news, there are some of the images that have come up. Not necessarily they talking about Ghana or infractions on the part of the security agencies, but they're making reference to items or events that have happened elsewhere, such as these images that have been circulated of dead bodies, coffins, and to suggest that so many people are dying in Italy and these are their coffins. That, you say, is also fake news.
That's also fake news. I mean, but of course
and
the
that's
context
also a
here.
crime.
Yes, I mean, and in here the intention is mixed. So you can have people who create these things to show how shockingly bad and terrible the situation in Italy, for example, is. We know that Lombardy and parts of Italy are actually in crisis, but we also do know that from forensic examinations of some of the videos, that there are videos that are made elsewhere, for example. I mean, Slovenian videos that have emanated from earthquake situations or natural disasters or other hazards that have happened in time, that are being transposed onto other circumstances in other countries and made to appear.
There's also one photo actually of dead body, people supposedly lying on a street, and suggesting that they have essentially dropped dead.
And Israel, that particular one is a classic one. So that one is, I think it's a German situation. You know, I think they were trying to actually depict a situation where if there was some catastrophe, people would be dismembered or people will fall apart. So it was an art exhibition. But that, for example, has popped up, and the narrative given to it has been so destructive at best to suggest that this is what Italians or people in Spain are facing.
Now, with all the fake videos that go on, I've been wondering, what is it that motivates people to create fake videos?
Now you are entering into the arena of criminology, you know, and then the science of crime, and what premeditated offenses are guided by or motivated by.
Is it the case that they just want to be popular?
That's part of it. I mean, so there's gratification. You understand? You get gratified. You get rewarded. Egos get rewarded. A video that has been watched, has captured the national imagination, has captured the regional imagination. And people are talking about it.
And you know it's coming from you.
And you know it's coming from you. So there's a kind of gratification that, you know, you can put money or value or substance or gold on that people in the dark web also kind of like. So that is something that we need to also bear in mind, that in moments like this, some people want to stand as heroes. Now, the point has been made that, for example, their names are not attached to these videos, or the sources, the people who make them themselves will not. But one of the things that we do know is that a number of these things are sometimes done in conjunction with others. Somebody might provide sound, somebody might help to improve the video, somebody might help. So it's like a team kind of thing. It's just like your own syndicates that you have. You have yourself, you have your cameraman, you have your producers. So they also have a microcosm of such an entity. And to have some of their content become how do you call it, the
Hits
stuff
and
the stuff of a national discussion, for example. I mean, it's some form of it's gratification.
Well, and not everybody works in a team. So because of the advancement of technology,
you can be a lone wolf.
Yeah, you can be a lone wolf and put all these things together. But you say that if you create and you share and somebody else shares, all those people in that chain are culpable.
They're culpable. But I mean, to the other point, so I mean, if you watch even the way Facebook works with gratification, likes, love, emotions, and things like that. I mean, there are literally people who share a video and go back and see how many people have liked it. And if they hit 500 or 200 or something, they say, wow, I mean, I'm having an effect.
You're saying that the one who creates it and the one who shares it,
right,
and the one who is circulating, you're all guilty.
I think that if you look at the instrument that governs us, we're looking, for example, at the Electronic Communications Act. We're looking at Section 76 of it. Section 76 is very amply clear that it's not talking about a creator, a sharer. These things are the processes that it passes. Somebody creates, somebody shares, or the same person creates and shares, you know. And somebody might broadcast it. A radio station or TV station might broadcast it, or some other people might, you know, pick it up and then give it publicity. It says a person who does what? A person who creates this content and shares them, and they have a misleading effect, and all those, you know, all the things, the bad things that we're talking about, commits an offense. So along that value chain, you have so many other people who can interpose. Somebody might create it, somebody might pick it and go and share it. That person might be guilty. But do not also forget about the nature of criminal law. There's abetment. And the definition for abetment is so elastic. So elastic. So you have somebody who encourages, somebody who supports, somebody. So if you support a crime, an offense, now the law is very clear that you ought to have knowledge. So if you know that what you're doing is false, if you know that you have you found soldiers going on a route march and you actually put out that the soldiers are invading Agotima, soldiers are coming after people in Kumasi, and you clearly know that something like this is not true, then you are committing an offense.
Apart from those seeking to gain popularity from it and gratification from it, there are others too who may have political motives.
Correct. So we live in a multi-party system that is fraught with competition. And so it is also possible to conceive of wrongdoing that emanates from a political space. I cannot deny that.
And seeking to undermine.
Of course, I mean, seeking to show that the exercise is fraught with difficulty, the exercise is not meeting its objectives, or maybe the exercise is maybe leading to some form of abuses. It can be religious, it can be... There are those who are actually bringing in apocalyptic videos also, and showing that the end of the world is in sight. And now showing that, how do you call it? I mean, it is for disobedience, aswarding and things like that. That is the reason why we are in the situation we find ourselves.
And we can't also rule out individuals who may not be happy about the lockdown and deciding that let me put out something that will make this lockdown look so bad, the president will change his mind. There's some too who decide that, okay, I'm doing this not because I'm caught. In fact, I don't want to be caught. But you have a way of catching these people and tracing where these videos are.
So you can use forensics, for example. So digital forensics.
Explain to us how this works.
So digital forensics operates on the understanding that every contact leaves a trace. Every contact. So sitting here, for example, you have footprints that are unique to you. The sole of feet is different from that of mine. Apart from that, to the chair that you have sat on, and your fingers are on it, so there are fingerprints on it. So right from day one, I mean, forensics have always advanced the understanding that contacts leave traces. Now the videos, if they are well studied, even where the videos emanate from can easily be identified. Apart from that too, I mean, there are particular tools that are like web crawlers that can tell us where particular videos came from, and they are analyzed. They show, they give traces and all those ones. So it allows the law enforcement community to be able to find out the origin of, it's a tenuous process, but like I said, they can backtrack and get through careful investigation.
And these people can be caught?
Oh, of course, yes. From the computer networks that they emanated from.
Are you seeking to make any examples or scapegoats?
That would be something that I will not like to disclose, but that is something that I have to say we're deeply looking at.
That very soon we probably may have some people being hauled before court.
Absolutely. For fear and panic reasons and all those things, yes.
There's also this very interesting video that popped up, and well, it's not fake. It involves, it's actually an actual event that happened where some traditional priests went to the beach to want to pray to the gods to see an end to COVID-19 and the havoc is wreaking across the world, and in fact on Ghana. They encountered some military personnel who went there and said, no, this is not social distancing, and so you should back off. Let's watch that video and then we can have a conversation about it.
There is a clash here between the police and the traditional leaders performing their right to drive away the deadly novel coronavirus. Just as they were done with their final right, pouring the water into the sea, returning back to their destination, then the police stopped them on the way. Because you and I all know that a partial lockdown has been declared. So the police were like, why are you on the streets now whilst a partial lockdown has been declared by the president? And just as you could see, the social distancing is not being complied here as it stands now. Now, the police are stopping them from continuing their duties or from continuing their rights, but then these people would not allow the police to do what they are supposed to do. So just as you could see, the police clashed with members of the Gas State. Why are they roaming about? Why a partial lockdown has been declared?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Israel, all national groups, big and small, must just respect the law. I think that, I mean, from whatever persuasion and for whatever cause, the law must be the final denominator. And once there is an imposition of restrictions on the manner in which religious activity, traditional activity, secular activity, sacred activity can be performed, I think that I plead with all segments of society to actually look at that and for the larger national interest, comply with it. But I also think that we should not be too much distracted about some of these hiccups that come along the path.
Agreed.
We should be looking at some conflict resolution with all, I mean, police, community relations and things like that. And I think you should take care of that.
Could we have avoided the conflict if they had found a way, for this well-intentioned act to happen?
I think so. I mean, even under normal circumstances, if one were to have, for example, a procession, in the interest of protecting those who participate and also the larger society that bears the heavy load of those actions, you need to inform the police about it so that they can offer you the protection necessary or commensurate. So even in the normal circumstances, but these circumstances that we find ourselves
extraordinary.
It's extraordinary.
And you brought up the issue of conflict resolution, which then brings up another issue which needs to be discussed, because if you had handled, or these security forces or agencies or personnel involved had handled the matter in a different way, we could have avoided a situation where we bring a milling crowd. Because what then happened was that after that incident, people just trooped together to witness, and it defeats the undermines the social distancing protocol.
Yes, for example, I mean, if you form an intention to go and do something, the police might not know. I can tell you that the Ghana Police Service, for example, and National Security have a very good working relationship with many groups, many subgroups. Normal times, in extraordinary times, in good times and in bad times, in high water and in low water. Had that kind of working relationship. Your own program here, Police Watch, is self-evident of it. You have built a community of interest that brings groups, that brings communities together. In Ghana, we have that kind of thing.
So with this current lockdown, have we seen a situation where we've restricted the movement of people? Has it helped reduce crime, or criminals are taking advantage of the situation?
Well, the statistics are not yet out. Normally, one might maybe talk about this using anecdotal evidence, but the statistics from the police, for example, is much more scientific. and because people report, it's reported, and then we don't have. We're not seeing the statistics yet, so I don't want to pronounce on it. But generally, I would say that in the initial phases, the first day, for example, police visibility, police numbers, and things like that were just about picking up. But as the days went by, from the second day and third day, out of assessment that had been made from the first day, there had been a marked difference in, and more police officers, even in the higher ranks, had been naturally enrolled into the entire exercise.
At some point, it appeared there were a lot more vehicles on the road than usual. Was it a relaxation of the lockdown?
I think that it is in the nature of Ghanaians to take advantage of every situation. So you do have a lot of people, I will be honest with you, who have no reason, for example, for being in town, but who are in town. Either maybe, I don't know whether it's boredom or so. I also don't know whether it's just that people have certain things to do and they are rushing to quickly do them. But what you would actually take notice of is what I said earlier, that people tend to, it's the nature of human beings who want to take advantage of every situation. So after the first day, somebody realized that somebody was in town. I went on a patrol duty once to see, monitoring, to see how things were. I met people. I interviewed somebody. I asked him, what are you doing here? He told me that, yes, he was here because we've been told to sit at home. And he wanted to know whether other people were actually at home. I met another person who also felt that
So hold on. You're saying that you encountered somebody who says, I came out, I violated the lockdown,
yes,
or defied the lockdown,
yes,
just to see if others were complying.
That is to see whether others were also breaking the lockdown. So you say we should stay at home, so I'm here to also see whether other people are also staying at home. So so sometimes you get these kinds of very interesting answers from people. Ludicrous as they may sound, But I went further, and I'm also with other people who also thought that they wanted to see the troops. People have shared videos of troops and all those kinds of things. They wanted to see whether, yes, there was actually troops on the, in their corridor, in their alleys and things like that. That is the reason why they are out there. Some are looking through windows, but they are on the street to come and see whether they can encounter some of these forces. So that is it. But taking you one step back, about some of the possible infractions that are going on. It is also to do with our borders, and our borders have porosity. So one of the areas where we are seeing a threat elevation is the border areas. So that is of a very concerning nature, because up above us you have Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, for example, has a much more difficult situation than Ghana, for example. And you also have Togo and then east, and then on the west you have Cote d'Ivoire. And you have a lot of people who seek to come to Ghana for some reasons. Yeah. Some claim it's for better health care. Others believe that they have relations here and that they need to be here, and others are bringing it. And you have unpatriotic Ghanaians also at work. People who are transporting people, even though they know that they are in direct breach of law. So like I said at the beginning, every circumstance creates its own level of offenses, or lockdown offenses, or restrictive offenses.
I can imagine it becomes a lot more difficult along the coast, where people are just get onto canoes, and when they come across or land on the beaches, you're unable to tell whether they're fishermen or who they are.
Yes, so all those kinds of things are part of the problems with, so if, for example, the exempt group is fishermen, then people parade as fishermen, you understand? They come in all sorts of guises. But the point is that the security elements are also well trained to be able to fish out, and the most important thing is not about reactive action. It's about some of the proactive actions, because that's where intelligence comes. So we must know what people are doing to be able to devise counter strategies against them. If you don't know, by the time you realize, it's a bit too late, and it's a lot of water has passed under the bridge. So that is why the BNI, for example, plays a very important role. And throughout this entire exercise, have put the Ghanaian interest, the nation's interest, at the heart of everything that they have done. They have provided adequate coverage, any coverage that is necessary to be able to get the state to understand what is going on. That has been an important role or exercise they have accomplished.
If you look at the situation in the lockdown areas, Greater Accra, Greater Kumasi, would you say some communities have complied better than others?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's ambulatory. I mean, today it's this, tomorrow is that. But basically, one of the things that we could also say is that in the metropolitan areas, huge ones like Accra, is different from the peripheries. So call Accra the center and call the rest the periphery. You would see differences. Accra is much more condensed in terms of population. Accra has a lot of homeless people than any other part of the country. Accra is, how do you call it, a melting pot. It's also a magnet for so many people. And so policing Accra is actually a very huge undertaking. Where do all the people without homes go when you say stay at home? You understand? So that is a question which obviously social welfare is confronted by. The police, by no fault of it, are confronted by. Go home. But
where is home?
The street is a home. So you would have to work out a deep sense of, you must be thinking about all these ones, even when you put in operations, you understand. So long as if you find homeless people everywhere in the world, I mean, and they might retreat from the street and sit in the crannies and all those things, and they must ease themselves, they must eat, they must do all sorts of things, but they have no home. So all those complexities in us informed, for example, right, ab initio, a partial lockdown. And as we progress through it, even if we want to go into a total lockdown situation, I think it's a question of, it's a mark of sagacity on our own part to be able to collect the lessons that can quickly be learned in these circumstances.
So it's been a very interesting conversation.
It has been.
But the argument is that it is important that we have this lockdown.
Yes, yes, yes. And I want to actually urge Ghanaians. The object is a health situation. We want to contain it. We want to bring it down. We want to isolate people, identify and isolate people who have either contracted it or people who are seriously or dangerously at risk of it, so that we can quickly get treatment for them. I urge that let's all come together and use the moments that we have for not only reflection, but also for circumspection about the things that we do. Those who set and create false videos, fake videos, engaging in criminality and all those things, put an end to it, stop it, and do better videos that encourage compliance, videos that show Ghanaians what they can do with their time and show some of the things that we're doing. Fairly, I must say that there are a number of individuals who are showing videos about the things that they have invented, and that is very much deeply commendable. It puts our country much more secure, you understand? So I think those things should be encouraged. The other issue has to do with also other behaviors which are also perhaps worthy of talking about. Wearing of the face mask, for example. Now, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States, has come out with, how do you call it, a very clear guideline that says that the face masks actually work. That in the area of droplet control, if all of us put on face masks as we go about any other thing, engaging with others, there will be no droplets for us to have contaminated surfaces and stuff like that. And that can be very helpful. I think that maybe going forward, that is something, for example, that those who can make videos, we urge you to make videos about such subject matter, right. You understand, and encourage greater compliance. Let's obey the law. Let's help our country. Let's stand up and be counted. That's my most fervent.
And indeed, over here, at Ghana Police Watch, we also decided that we're going to practice social distancing.
Absolutely.
So here for the show, we're having only one guest, and we've separated us quite extensively. So you're farther away from me than you typically would for a regular show. And indeed, talking about the nose mask, well, I have mine here, and I noticed that you brought yours. So yours is customized.
It is.
A flag of Ghana.
It is.
How did you come by that?
Actually, I made it myself.
Oh, you made it yourself?
I'm an artist, and I have other people who I work with. I have friends who do design, and so I drew it up for them. and then we
All right.
created it.
So you came wearing yours. I also came wearing mine, and I'm going to wear it before we actually leave the set. We're all doing these to stop the spread of COVID-19.
We must take responsibility.
Yes, we have.
And
we
people,
should.
as we move around, we have
should.
to move with the soaps, we have to move with the sanitizers,
Yeah.
we have to have our face mask handy, and we must wear them.
Yeah. And that's my hand sanitizer right there, which I also go about with. And I'm going to put on my mask just before we go out. I don't have the customized one that you do.
Perhaps maybe we will do one for you.
Yeah, you should. and have my name on it.
I have your name on it.
So viewers, as you can see, I'm putting on mine.
Okay.
And that's how we're going to sign off the show. But thank you very much, lawyer Osebunsu Dixon, who is with the National Security Secretariat, legal advisor to the National Security Secretariat. And to you out there, be safe and stop the spread. Stay at home so they can stop the spread of COVID-19. Thank you very much for watching the show, and you have a good night until next week.